If you don't give them an order, there is no growth for the company. The company will die. So if there are 10 startups that are started, say in a day in India, 8 of them fall by the wayside just because they don't have orders at the end of the day. So that is where this new, IDEX and the Startup India Challenge is kind of doing a revolution in this space. So they are kind of providing an opportunity to a new company which has a new idea and a product, a solution to the problem that the armed forces are facing, and without asking them what is your experience, they're trusting them and giving them an order. If they execute it well, and they, as Idea Forge got a second order, everybody else is also going to get more orders from here on.
Hey everyone, welcome to a brand new episode of ContraMinds. In this episode, we are in conversation with Bipindra N.C.
Bipin, as he is known, is the founder and editor of Defence.Capital. Defence.Capital tracks the business and politics of India's growing defence, homeland security, aerospace, and maritime trade and markets.
We had a wide range of discussions with Bipin on the role of startups, entrepreneurship in defence tech, the structure of India's defence ecosystem, and the knowledge and skills veterans bring to the private sector.
So, without any further delay, here's our conversation with Bipindra N.C. Thank you so much, Bipin, for joining us on ContraMinds. It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
In fact, it is my privilege to be on the show. I've kind of listened to a lot of conversations that you have had with a lot of interesting people, and the kind of personalities that you choose. I'm really privileged and I feel humbled to be part of this podcast with you guys. Thank you so much, Swami and Vignesh, for having me on the show today.
No problem, Bipin. The pleasure is entirely ours. Before we get into a lot of things about defense tech and entrepreneurship in this space and certain policies regarding how it's boosting this entire space, we want to sort of understand what are the origins of Defence.Capital, because you come from a traditional journalism background where you've been in PTI and TOI and Bloomberg. So what led to the origins of Defence.Capital?
Okay, my platform Defence.Capital is basically evolution that has happened over the years. I've been doing this defense journalism per se for the last 20 years now. So I started off sometime around 2020, and then I have slowly gathered. I don't have a defense background. None of my parents weren't from the armed forces. I have some extended family members who were from the armed forces. Probably the inspiration comes from there, because I've lived with one of my uncles who was a military officer, and so I had the opportunity to live with him, and then I was schooling there with him, and then I got to go and visit his military facilities and look at all that. So I kind of got inspired by that to kind of spend some time on these issues. But I couldn't join the armed forces for various reasons which were beyond my control. But apart from that, I wanted to really, when I got into journalism, wanted to pursue this as a subject. So I started my journalism career from Chennai. I started off from a very small newspaper called News Today, which was an evening published in Chennai. Right when I was there, there were some defense establishments in Chennai which kind of invited journalists to cover their events and all. So I started going from then on. And then the Indian Express, the New Indian Express, which is published from Chennai, gave me the real break to do defense journalism, from Chennai. And I started off from there. There are not too many establishments there. Very small establishments, small naval setup and a Coast Guard setup, and a couple of air bases nearby, including a Coast Guard air station. So that interest started from there, and then I moved to to Chandigarh to pursue defense journalism. I got a break there in Times of India, where I really got the big break and opportunity, because Chandigarh is a big place for defense journalism itself. And then I moved to Delhi, where the actual defense journalism is practiced. There are stalwarts who practice defense journalism for several years. So, you start covering the armed forces, some encounter that has happened or some policy decision. So slowly my interest, kind of shifted towards defense business, defense technology, defense policies, which impact industry, which impact businesses. So, and that aspect of it kind of got evolved or matured, should I put it that way, when I joined Bloomberg News as their as India's first ever dedicated defense technology and business correspondent for any foreign publication ever. So I kind sort of pioneered that space in journalism where people covered defense technology, business, trade, bilateral diplomacy issues, and all that. So also, it aligns with the strategic affairs and foreign affairs issues. So I got to cover those issues also for Bloomberg News for about 6 years. So that is where my interest in everything evolved. I started understanding business. I started understanding industry, and all that evolved there. That is how. Then the obvious thing is you go independent. You want to go independent at some point, and from there germinated the idea of Defence.Capital, which I started, just before the COVID outbreak happened in January 2020. So, but it's not been a bad journey, I must say. In the last 2 years, I've been doing pretty well. For what I expected, I've been doing pretty well. So that's how Defence.Capital evolved.
That's interesting, Bipin. As I went through this whole area around defense and technology and business, one interesting comment that I came across was the fact that General Bipin Rawat actually used a statement which said, modernization cannot happen without involvement of startups. That was a very interesting comment to be made by a general. And as I see the developments that are happening in the defense tech and the defense world, this is a key turning point that I see in how defense was seen probably a decade or a decade and a half back to how we are seeing it today. Is that how you are also seeing it? What do you see are the changes that are happening?
It's a very interesting question, Swami, that you have asked. I believe I agree with General Bipin Rawat on what he said in this sphere. See, if you look at business itself, so most of the businesses work for the shareholders, they work for profit. They want to take back money home at the end of the day. So they look at their bottom lines. So they invest money where the business is, where the money is. So all these large corporations, per se, if you look at it, I bracket them all together. I don't spare anybody in this sphere right now. All of them are putting money where they see a business, where they see an order coming. But actually, it is the startups which are actually doing the real, groundwork. I remember, about 5 years back, there were about 6,000, 7,000 odd, startups that were working in the Indian defense sector, aerospace and defense. I clubbed them together because there are a lot of similarities in both the sectors. There were about 7,000 of them which were working in India, but today it's about 11,000 startups that are working in this sphere. Look at the growth. Look at the growth in 5 years. What has happened in 5 years? So it's almost doubled in 5 years. So okay, you asked about 10 years back. See, I was covering journalism and I was covering defense journalism hardcore, 10 years back. So that was the kind of time where I was just going, reaching my peak. Then there was not much talk about defense business, asset business, journalism in the sector, aerospace or even defense sector. When I talk about aerospace sector, most people think that it's synonymous with the aviation sector, but it's not.
Yeah.
The aerospace sector is much, much larger. The aviation sector is only a subset of the aerospace sector itself. So, from what I have, looked at, you can say that my evolution matches with the kind of evolution that has happened or the changes that have happened in the aerospace and defense sector itself in India. Probably I was one of those early defense journalists in India who identified that this is going to be a big space in the coming years, where people will be reporting and talking about it much more in a much more intense way than what they were doing, say, 10 years back. So, and I picked up the thread and then I started, what do you call it, as ramping up by catching that rope and then just ramping up down that ladder or up that ladder, as you want to put it. And then I kind of reached where I've reached, where I'm now independent, and I have it's a startup. Actually, it's a media startup in the aerospace and defense sector space. So that's where I've reached. So that what I told you earlier and what I told you just now, if you just juxtapose these two together, then you can understand the kind of growth this sector has had over the years. Why people are now talking about it. Defense journalism is changing its nature to covering defense business and trade, which I picked up the thread much earlier, and I kind of sort of pitched it to Bloomberg, and then joined them as the first ever defense business and trade correspondent ever in India, working for a foreign financial news wire. So that's the story of Indian defense startup itself. I mentioned about. Sorry, I'm taking too long to answer this.
No. I think this conversation is a free flowing conversation. So therefore, don't worry about I think the idea is some of these conversations go on for long, and we just don't have a checklist to say I've asked these 10 questions. So
okay, fine.
that's not the way. I think it's the more we talk, we get in depth.
Correct. So you talked about work that the startups are doing. See, startups are doing. I made this statement that startups are doing the real work in the aerospace and defense sector. Established small and medium enterprises also sort of look at the nuts and bolts becoming a the tier 2 or the tier 3 or even the tier 4 supplier, starting from the lowest order of nuts and bolts, and then growing up to doing a little bit of smaller parts and components, and then doing some subsystems, and then doing some larger systems. The tier 1 is the larger systems, which, for example, an aero engine is a system, and the aircraft is a system of systems. So, that is what the tier 2, tier 3, and tier 4 are looking at down the order. Whereas startups are doing actual research work. They're putting in money in R&D. They're developing products. They're not looking at just getting a tie-up with some foreign company which already has a product to supply, and then you start getting the technology and the know-how to make it, and then you start making it here. The what, how, and why of it, and then you start making it here. So the startups are not doing that. Most of them are sort of doing some real and serious research and development work. And most of them, I would say, I mean, if startups are listening to the conversation that we're having today, I would like to tell them that please don't focus only on drones. There are much larger opportunity in other areas of defense sector which the startups can look at. I can give you an example. Simulators. Just the other day, just 2 days back, the government of India, the Ministry of Defense, came out with a policy on adoption of simulation for training purposes. So, which is a great move. Actually, it's a Defence.Capital impact. We had organized an event in June, July of last year, 2020, bringing some of the big generals who have served in different arms, say infantry, the artillery, and other arms of the services of the armed forces, and we had a 1 day long trash out on the training issues. What are the challenges and what are the modern solutions that we can look at? Because see, more and more operations are happening around the country in Jammu Kashmir, even in the hinterland. The anti-Naxal operations are happening. So more and more forces and soldiers and even officers are greatly involved in those operations. So they don't get time to, for training to happen, you need a large space where, large ground where there are natural hindrances, the terrain hindrances that I'm talking about, that you kind of train to overcome, and then you do your wargaming, sort of a thing. It's basically an exercise. Wargaming is a different idea. Exercise, physical exercise that you do. You require time. You need to take the soldier out of his operations and put him for 2-3 months in one area to do the training. Look at the time of the logistics challenge that they have. Look at the sort of time challenge that they have. Look at the sort of manpower challenge that they have. You are actually drawing. If there are 1,000 members in a battalion, you are just taking out a few people and sending them the way, weakening the strength of the battalion. So how to overcome it? You have a training center through simulation in your own backyard, wherever you are currently operating, and then you allot 1 hour, 2 hour time to each of the, and you can do the training faster. So simulation technology helps that way. So we proposed certain measures that can be adopted, and finally the government of India, I think I played that Ramayana squirrel ka part in Ram Setu. That sort of a small part I played. We did this thing and we submitted recommendations to the government, and I'm happy in just about a year's time they made it into a formal policy. So simulation is a great area for startups to look at. And I just have to mention some names if it is permitted in your show. There is a company in Hyderabad, Zen Technologies. It's again a startup. They were actually into gaming, sector, and then they started. They looked at the defense sector as a good business opportunity, and they got into simulation. And they won an order just about 10-15 days back from the Indian Air Force for one of their anti-drone technology. But they are a great simulation company, military simulators company. So that's the sort of examples we have in India where the startups are doing great work on the ground.
Interesting. So what I also read, Bipin, is about $68 million has been set up for IDEX, which is really a huge, almost like a startup capital to build this, innovation hub, as we call it. Can you talk to us about what is this IDEX? What kind of work is being sprung there? What is really the ambition of IDEX, and what is the kind of technologies that they're trying to encourage and build with startups?
Yeah, see, IDEX is basically a idea that the Indian Armed Forces have come up with. Interestingly, the Indian Armed Forces have started establishing what they call as defense innovation centers, or departments, or establishments within the headquarters in Delhi. So I think this idea started about 5 years back, where they came up with a defense startup challenge, innovation startup challenge. So that is what the first idea, sometime in 2017 or 18, if I'm not able to recall. It's about 5 editions old right now. The 5th edition is happening this year. So 2017, if I remember the year correctly. So they started this thing they saw the potential. That's what I'm talking about. 7,000 odd startups in the aerospace and defense sector growing to 11,000 numbers. I mean, it's a huge jump there in 5 years' time. So this IDEX was to boost these kind of startup activity, which the armed forces saw as the solution to the problems and challenges that they had. Again, I come back to the same statement. Startups are doing the actual real work. So why should they focus on startups? Every year they put up some 20, 30 odd challenges that they're facing while they're using an equipment. The army uses multiple equipment, different countries, different origins. Some are Indian, some are Russian, some are Western equipment. So as they do, some of them are vintage, 60s vintage, 1960s vintage equipment, including the MiG fighter aircraft. So they face some operational challenges with some equipment or a system or a component or something like that in the equipment. So they wanted solutions for those problems. So this idea of IDEX germinated from there. So first, I think I remember they went around having interaction with some industry people. They brought the industry, which was the first thing that ever happened. All this happened in the last 5 years. So they brought the industry people to their centers, where it's very difficult for any private person to enter a military station or a military establishment, but they invited the companies which are looking for opportunities to the military station, show the equipment and tell them, these are my challenges, can you resolve them? So that is how this idea started. The IDEX idea started, and then they held these defense innovation startup challenges. where companies came and presented their ideas, their equipment as a solution to the problems that were cited by the armed forces. And these were all kind of held alongside the challenges were held alongside the Def Expo and the Aero India show that happens in India. It's a biennial event. Each are biennial events. Alternate years these two happen. Events happen, big events. So the award announcements used to happen there. The winners used to be happen there. I remember the first defense innovation startup challenge that happened. There were about 23 odd winners. Uh, for a aerospace and defense startup, it's a big thing, to be recognized as a solution provider to the armed forces of the country. And 23 of them were the proud winners of that challenge, and that number is growing exponentially in the last 5 years. And I remember the last event that happened in Bangalore, earlier this year in 2021, the Aero India show. There were more than 100 odd companies that were participating in this challenge. So which started off with just about 40 odd companies. So it's kind of growing by leaps and bounds. It was more than 100 number of companies, that startups that were participating in these challenges. So it's an exciting space actually. I feel like a child when I look at this kind of development that's happening in the startup space in India, particularly in the aerospace and defense sector. That the childlike excitement is there when I look at this space and the kind of work that these guys are doing. It's amazing work that these guys are doing, and I think the phase of the Indian defense sector is going to be completely transformed in the next 5 years. I can see that happening from here on. So that's how this IDEX idea germinated, and now it's evolving into a big event annually.
There's an interesting article that I was reading in the US. The total market size for software as a service, which is a SaaS product, which is about $100 billion. Okay, but the US government gave orders for defense equipment, which is about $445 billion. So the opportunity for defense tech and the market size, if you really crack this market, is pretty huge, and it's not small as we speak, right? So therefore, would you kind of throw up the kind of opportunities and the scale, because we really talk about unicorns, right? But here there's an opportunity to build an unicorn. Maybe it won't happen overnight, but the fact that these are huge unicorns that can be built, like the ones that are there in the US and France and the rest of the countries, this can become very huge in terms of size, right?
Correct, exactly. In fact, the annual defense budget in India is about $60 billion annually. That's the kind of amount that India spends. But not all of them go for procurements of equipment and services that are required by the armed forces. So if my estimate is correct, the capital expenditure is about $15-16 billion, and there is a revenue expenditure. Revenue expenditure, for the layman who's listening to this conversation, is basically the nuts and bolts expenses or a maintenance expense. So if for example, if you have bought a printer for use at home, every 1 or 2 months you will buy the cartridge, ink cartridge for it. So the ink cartridge buying is the revenue expenditure, whereas the capital expenditure is the printer itself that you bought initially. So it's in layman terms. I think people will understand what I've just said about these two sort of expenditure. So the $15 billion is the capital expenditure opportunity, and the revenue expenditure opportunity is about between $8 and $10 billion. So that's about 26 to 30 billion dollars is what the defense expenditure annually is worth. So the startups have a great opportunity here, in the sense that, of course, major expenses go away towards big equipment. Say there is a warship that is being bought, or a Rafale jet that was bought recently. So these are all big expenditure. So these expenditures are staggered. over say the delivery schedules that happen. So once there is you pay an initial amount and then the deliveries happen, and you pay staggered amounts to cover the total purchase cost of the equipment. But where do the startups have opportunity? The solution, that the vintage equipment that I talked about, the new solutions that India needs. So there are a lot of smaller opportunities that India can cater to, like drones. I mean, a lot of startups have this fascination for drones because it's a great emerging opportunity. It's a dual use product. You can have payloads which are military, payloads which are civilian. So there is a great opportunity. I see that as a great opportunity, of course. But there are other areas also where they need to focus and work on. When they start doing that, this market size is going to increase drastically. And my estimate would be that India, as of today, would be spending about $2 or $3 billion annually from startups. Like I told you, Zen Technologies won a order, anti-drone order, counter-drone order from Air Force. Similarly, there is another drone maker called Idea Forge, which is based in Mumbai, and it's an IIT Mumbai incubator. It's a company that evolved from that IIT Mumbai
Sign.
incubator.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, Sign. And that company, has won a couple of orders in the recent years. Probably they were the first to, Indian startup to sell a drone to the Indian Army. They had developed a quadcopter which they sold first, and then the people saw the opportunity, and everybody started jumping into this drone game that happened. So that company has again sold another drone, tactical drone, recently. So there are multiple companies. New Space is another company from Bengaluru, which has sold again the Swarm drone, which is an emerging technology in the drone sector, to the Indian Army. So the startup companies are bagging contracts.
Yeah.
The Indian Ministry of Defence is not asking what is your experience of delivering
Right.
or supplying equipment before, because in all other sectors you see they will ask you what's your experience, what have you sold before to the government. So that was the chicken and egg question. So that part has been overcome by this government, the Ministry of Defence today.
No, it's an amazing point that you're making. It's not just drone. There are autonomous vehicles. There are unmanned aerial vehicles. There is AR. There is defense glass. There is underground drones. So many startups and technologies that are actually fundamentally research led and deep research led, which is really
artificial intelligence, virtual realities. All these are big emerging sectors for the startups to work on for the defense sector.
Right. So I think when we look at the defense space, right? I mean, by we I mean lay people who read newspapers and get their news from TVs, etc. They hear individual agencies. They know what a DRDO is. They know what's a DRD. They know what is the MIA, etc. Right? But there is very little explanation for how these various agencies are actually part of one defense ecosystem, right? So can you give us a lay of the land of how these various agencies are actually working together as one cohesive unit?
Yeah, certainly. That's again a very interesting question that you have asked. See, all these. Okay, we'll go one by one, and then I'll tell you how there is some kind of a cohesion in their work that you see. As you mentioned, I'll start with the DRDO. The DRDO is basically the R&D establishment for defense sector in India. They have budgets of about I think about 10 to 15,000 crores annually. 20,000 crores max is what they have. But most of it they spend on doing research work for defense in various sectors, not only the Agni missiles and the Arjun tanks and stuff, like the larger stuff, but also important areas like life sciences, where what is the kind of food that the soldier who's posted in a high altitude location like Siachen should have to ensure that his body gets the nutrition, because it's very difficult to eat, and then do your morning ablutions in Siachen because of the low temperatures that exist there. The morning ablutions are a huge pain, basically. Literally, it's a huge pain. So they ensure that the soldier eats something to keep his energy levels good and also gets nutrition. So they work on those kind of activities. There is another agency called as snow research establishment, which is based in Chandigarh. So SASE basically works on the climate, the living conditions of soldiers and how to improve their living conditions. They have come out with solar heated tents, which kind of ensure that you have uh, conditions where you can live comfortably without much. The habitat is very important for a soldier when he's posted in a location like Siachen. So that it works there. So there are, I'm showing you the two extremes: Agni Arjun tanks to the food items and clothing and all that. So that is a wide range of activity that DRDO does. And there are other establishments which are called as the defense public sector units or undertakings. There are about 8 of them in the defense sector, which is handled by a department called as Department of Defense Protection. It's one of the departments in the Ministry of Defense. So that all these, there are 3 or 4 shipbuilders, which are defense public sector shipbuilders. Mazagaon Dock is there, then the Hindustan Shipyard in Visakhapatnam is there. Then Kolkata has one. So there are 4 of these shipyards, and there is a aircraft maker in HAL, which is Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. Then there's Bharat Electronics, which looks at electronic products and also weaponry. And then you have BDL, which is Bharat Dynamics Limited, which looks after missiles and the hard-hitting weaponry of the Indian Armed Forces. And then you have also have Midani, which takes care of the metallurgical challenges that these equipment face. So they ensure that there are indigenously we are able to make those alloys, which are quite difficult to do. It's a huge challenge. They solve those problems and provide the material. And there is also private sector companies, large companies like Larsen and Toubro or Tata's. Then you have Mahindras, Adani's are there. Then Ambani was also interested, but he couldn't pursue it much. So all these big names in the industry, then Bharat Forge. So all of them got into the defense sector, and all of them are getting to make some equipment or the other. Larsen and Toubro makes warships for the Indian Coast Guard. Then it also makes a artillery gun, self-propelled artillery gun for the Indian Army. So Tatas are going to be making a military cargo aircraft, which they signed a deal for
Right.
a couple of days back.
Yeah.
So I mean, yesterday they signed the deal yesterday. So these companies are there, and then you have these Zen technology type of SMEs, and then you have startups like Idea Forge that I talked about, and all the rest of the the private sector units are there. So apart from the Department of Defense Protection, you also have an acquisition wing in the Department of Defense. Department of Defense is different from Department of Defense Protection. So the Department of Defense usually handles the acquisition part, the capital acquisition part of it. They take the call, they take the decision. There is a committee called as the Defense Acquisition Committee, which is chaired by the Minister of Defense. And it has as members all the armed forces chiefs, the DRDO chief, the secretaries of the departments of in the Ministry of Defense, all the department secretaries. They are all members of that committee. They take a call on. Once they take a call, they have financial powers. Each of them have financial. Even the armed forces have financial powers. Like the vice chief of each of the force exercise that financial power. They have a limit up to which they can take a call on a purchase, whether it's a capital purchase. Revenue purchase is an entirely different stream of purchase that is done. So similarly, the DAC has a certain power. The DAC is the Defense Acquisition Council. Then if it is beyond, say, 2,000 crore, if a value is beyond 2,000 crore, then it goes to the Cabinet Committee on Security, which is chaired by Prime Minister Modi himself, and which has the Defense Minister, the External Affairs Minister, Finance Minister, and the Home Minister as the members of the committee. So this is the overall And I told you how that's a very simple answer to it. So all of them, when there is a proposal comes for an acquisition or a development of a product or a technology from the respective service headquarters or from DRDO, and it goes for approval, to say the Department of Defense Production, and then the Department of Defense, and then it goes to the Defense Acquisition Council for a decision. And once the thing is decided, then the purchase orders are contract is negotiated and the purchase order is placed ultimately. So this is the how the entire process works. So there are more than 50 DRDO labs all across the country, and there is one other very important establishment called as the Ordnance Factory Board. Now that Ordnance Factory Board, which was a single unit which had about another 50 odd factories, has been now merged together and also divided into 7 parts and made into government-run, state-run corporates.
Mm-hmm.
Now there are 7 corporate companies which have been formed out of the these many factories, ordnance factories that they had, and they have done it in clusters wise. So one of them will make just the artillery guns, the other one will make only the tanks. Some of them will take care of only the clothing aspect of it. Some of them, one of them will take care of the clothing. One of them will take care of the ancillary items like ammunition manufacturing and stuff like that. So that is another establishment. So that comes under the Department of Defense Production along with the defense public sector undertakings. So this is how the landscape looks like.
Right. I mean, another question that I had related to this is, so I compare something like this to say how the origins of a company like Palantir is, right? So Palantir, for those listeners who don't know, it's a big data defense startup based in the United States. And if you look at the origins of Palantir, it was actually incubated by a fund or a incubator called IncuTel, okay, which is basically the venture capital wing of the Central Intelligence Agency or the CIA in the United States. So the CIA is realizing that, hey, we need to use some popular startup techniques like having incubators and venture capital and stuff like that to get services like Palantir or Anduril up and running, right? So do you think that sort of a model will propel progress in this very young and upcoming and rapid growth stage that the defense technology sector is in?
See, this kind of the systemic comparisons cannot be made because the methodology that is adopted by the US in taking its decisions on
right.
a product development or say acquisition is entirely different from what India does.
Right.
So that is where there is a that comparison will be like
apples and oranges.
Exactly, use a cliche.
Yeah.
So I wanted to avoid that. So
it's perfect.
So here already there are a lot of policy changes that are happening. So
right.
If you ask me, will there be a systemic change where the entire existing paraphernalia will be abandoned and then a new setup would be created? I doubt it. That kind of a thing won't happen. So the best option and the solution here would be for India to look at its own domestic existing systems and see how they can be improved to propel the sectors to the kind of growth levels that it wants. It's already, I'm sure you are aware that India wants to do about $26 billion worth of defense production in India by 2025 and do about $5 billion worth of exports during the same period. So it's an uphill task. Right now, it's the exports are less than $1 billion. So you have just about another 4 years to achieve that. So if India can create systems and design policies that suit your existing bottlenecks and try to make it a little flexible and expand or do away with the bottlenecks at some point in time and allow these companies to grow and by giving them opportunity. See, ultimately what is what these companies are looking at, orders. If you don't give them an order, there is no growth for the company. The company will die. So if there are 10 startups that are started, say in a day in India, 8 of them fall by the wayside just because they don't have orders at the end of the day. So that is where this new, IDEX and the Startup India Challenge is kind of doing a revolution in this space. So they are kind of providing an opportunity to a new company which has a new idea and a product, a solution to the problem that the armed forces are facing, and without asking them what is your experience, they're trusting them and giving them an order. If they execute it well, and as Idea Forge got a second order, everybody else is also going to get more orders from here on.
Yeah.
So I just want to just add one small nuance to it, because it's very important. See, what has happened is, earlier, what used to happen in the defense space is that the companies cannot approach the Ministry of Defense on their own suo moto and tell them that, see, I have this idea. This is a new product which we believe your armed forces, your soldier will be able to use it quite well, and it will help them in their war fighting effort, and also it will be a good preparation for war. So let's try it out. That possibility was not there. That has changed now.
Yeah.
Now, so moto companies can approach, and the doors are open in the Ministry of Defense now to accept those applications, those ideas, to review them and to take a decision and a call on it, and then say, okay, I'm liking this idea, let's try it out. So the opportunity is being given. So that's the kind of difference. The 500 crore opportunity for the startups. It's a great, amazing thought process. Of allocating. See, ultimately, what these startups get for their idea is about 1 to 1.5 crore rupees each of the startup.
Yeah.
This 500 crore will be distributed among 300 startups. That's the target that has been set. So it's a trickle, actually. It's a trickle for the kind of work that is required, for the kind of investment that is required. But it's a good starting place. That's what I believe. If I get 1.5 crores, Defence.Capital will be much, much different than what it is today.
Right. No, I'm asking this because it's really interesting. So let's remove the Incutel side of it, at least, or the venture side of it. Yeah. The other way that I'm also looking at a way we can use all the kind of systems that have been set up for DRDO and the departments to actually leverage is if I look at something like DARPA, for example. So if you really look at the origins of DARPA, it was actually set up to actually combat Sputnik in the USSR in the space race. Now, while it might be somewhat politically incorrect to say we are in the times of COVID and the increasing influence of China, so the impact that DARPA had also trickled down to a lot of commercial innovations like your GPS and your graphical user interface and the internet as well, right? So is there, you see coming down the line, where you can have a entity like a DARPA or a DARPA Grand Challenge or a DARPA fund, like we have the IDEX, is the first step in that direction. But do you see the payoff for this is actually 30-40 years down the line, right? So what are your views on something like this is something I would like to ask.
That's quite an interesting thing. In fact, I'm not sure whether I can share it here because it was told to me in confidence. There is a thought process in this regard that is going on right now. I think I can say that. There are some thoughts on reshaping the DRDO that's currently going on in the government. Okay, how it will work out, the finer details are not yet set in black and white.
Right.
So it will be premature for me to talk about it at this point in time. But yes, Vignesh, your question is absolutely relevant here. There is a thought process where probably DRDO will be doing something like what DARPA is doing at this point in time.
Right.
So most of the technologies that DRDO has developed at this point in time is also kind of the technology is transferred to several private sector companies. There are interesting policies that DRDO has suo moto implemented of how to freely transfer technology without demanding any royalty from the technology that they they don't want any money at this point in time. They want the technology to be
ubiquitous. Yeah,
exactly. Be a commercial product which is useful to the armed forces, and if it has a civilian application, let it also be used in the civilian space. See, the actual question that you have asked, the DRDO is already working towards that. They have already implemented a couple of policies in this regard, and they have also released a list of technologies that are available with the DRDO, which they want to transfer technology free of cost to the private sector to do manufacturing of those products and profit out of it. So that is happening. And the larger question that you asked is is a little premature
Yeah.
for me to talk about at this point in time.
Perfect. Not a problem.
So my question, Bipin, is if you really want to do this thing that you're talking about, which is really be at the cutting edge technology, because like what Vignesh was talking, saying the origins of the internet itself was from the DARPA, right? So therefore, that's really how it went. So one thing that I saw was the ecosystem for that, which is collaboration with a university, collaboration with entrepreneurs, collaboration with corporations, collaboration with government, collaboration with risk capital. Okay, these are the 5 components that have come together to build that kind of an innovation, right? So is that something that is needed, and how do you think it should be done, and what are your thoughts on how other countries have done it, and how should it be done in a country like India, given whatever environment and ecosystems that we have?
The best example of this would be how the US has done work in the defense space. See, the World War II was the turning point in the US's defense sector itself. So this DARPA, all this evolved, and then the technologies were transferred to the private sector to make them into a commercial success. Similarly, almost every defense production work that is being done in the US is being done by the private sector. So the many times the criticism that comes, I may be deviating from what you asked, but just to make a point here, the criticism that comes towards the Indian way of doing things in the defense sector is that there is too much of emphasis on the defense PSUs that are there, which are government run, and most of them, the criticism is they do very shabby work. Their products are not of quality. Their work is subpar. These are the kind of criticisms that come. But if you look at the missile technology work that India has done, it's one of the best in the world. And of course, it was a spin-off from the space sector work that the pioneers had already done. And of course, my guru, Dr. Abdul Kalam, was a great thinker in this aspect, and he did did a lot of pioneering work in that sphere. But unfortunately, what has happened is that some of the criticism are real, and there is some basis and truth to those criticisms. So that is where the rectification needs to happen in how India does its things. So as I mentioned, the United States focuses only on private sector. Is that a model that we can adopt? Probably yes. But the kind of politics, being a democracy, the kind of politics that happens in India doesn't allow this kind of a drastic policy change that can happen. So what is the way out is a middle path, and to bring in some amount of accountability in the work that these kind of defense PSUs, they do, what the sort of work that they do. The quality needs improvement. The work ethics and the work culture needs a lot of change. And interestingly, if you look at the other parts of the world, say Europe. So what has happened in the European space? Most of the companies, say Italian company or a France-based European company, most of them were government-run companies at some point of time. Or even Brazil, for that matter. I am looking at Embraer. Embraer was a government-run company which was privatized. This happened in Spain. This has happened in in Brazil. It has happened in France. It has happened in Italy, and it has happened in Germany also. Most of the government-run defense establishments have been privatized at some point in time, and all of them have grown by leaps and bounds. So there is always this comparison. I'm just for the benefit of your readers, your listeners, I want to say that the Embraer was started at the same time as HAL, Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, but it's a 10 times much bigger company than HAL is today. So that's the kind of change that has happened. I must credit privatization, to be one of the factors for the turnaround that Embraer has witnessed. So probably that is a model that we can adopt. But as I mentioned earlier, politics is a big hurdle that comes in the way. probably if there is some kind of a consensus in the political class on in national interest, so that is when the kind of changes can happen. The DARPA type of changes can happen. The Lockheed Martins and the Boeing type of changes can happen, or even the the Airbus sort of a change can happen, or Embraer sort of a change can happen in India. That's what I believe. I think, but we are. I don't want to say that it's a long haul, because I'm always an optimist.
Right.
So I want to see these kind of changes happening in India, and probably the private sector is doing excellent work. For example, the Larsen and Toubro has delivered warships to the Indian Coast Guard much ahead of the delivery schedule that was fixed by the government of India. So months ahead of. So that's the kind of efficiency that we are showing, and the Indian shipyards are now exporting warships to other countries. Some in the Indian Ocean neighborhood, some in South China Sea. So that's the kind of work that the private companies have started doing. So there is another SME which is based in Kanpur. It's called as MKU, which makes personal protection kit for soldiers. They are a big exporter of their products to countries abroad, to police forces and military forces abroad, to Southeast Asian nations, to African nations, some in even South America, some in Europe. They have exported quality personal protection products to the companies. So to the foreign countries. So that what I mean to say is there is potential for changes to happen, potential for the private sector to have a greater participation, and since most of them focus on efficiency and getting things done in less budget, better quality, and on time delivery, I think it will be a great idea to have the kind of changes that we talked about just recently. If I have not covered anything from your question, you can just repeat it, because I just lost that thought.
So my question really was around the ecosystem of working with academia, universities, because there's a lot of fundamental research that happens there, and from there comes in technology which gets adopted by defense, and there's something called dual tech, which is some are used in military establishments, some become commercial establishments, and that's how innovation has happened in these countries. And that's the kind of innovation that we need to drive here. And what would you think are the frameworks or the push that is needed to get this going?
Okay, I'll just first touch upon what has happened till now. So I mentioned earlier also IIT Bombay, IIT Chennai. There are a lot of other institutions where the defense sector, the defense ministry is engaging with innovation hubs. Basically, incubation centers have been established in most of these institutions today, where there is joint collaborative work that is happening. DRDO is doing some part of that work. DRDO has established chairs in some of these academic technology institutions, where some kind of work is happening. The Idea Forge, which I kept mentioning earlier, came out of such a hub. All these startups are coming out of those hubs. I think they have a huge potential to work on different sectors that we talked about, not just focusing on drones. So that will provide the opportunity for the two-way flow of information, two-way flow of thought, two-way flow of ideas, and also ultimately, I mean, the academic sector academia cannot do production work. So what germinates from this collaboration between the government establishment and the incubation centers and the academia can flow into the private sector, which can ultimately come out with a commercial product and make it a commercial success. The academia also, it's a win-win-win situation for all the three sides. It's so basically the academia gets its royalty, the government gets the equipment that it wants, and the commercial establishments get their bottom lines right at the end of the day. So that's the kind of win-win-win situation that this can throw up.
Yeah.
Usually they call it as public-private partnership. They should make it as public-private and academia partnership.
Right.
So that's where the winning formula is.
Right. So I'll just switch gears a little bit. I think recently there was an agreement between the Indian Navy and Flipkart about hiring veterans into the organization. So one of the questions I had was, what are your thoughts? Because it's a very popular trend in the West where veterans who have served in the military come back and advise corporations and stuff like that. So my question to you is, what do you think is the experience and the knowledge that a veteran actually brings to private corporations?
See, the veterans are already trained manpower that exists. They have huge skills. They not only have security skills, they also have interpersonal skills. They also have leadership skills. They also have administrative and managerial skills. So all these skills are already imbibed in them while they're getting trained or performing their role as soldiers and officers in the armed forces. So it's actually a great idea for and also, I mean, it's a fact that most of the soldier rank officers retire young. They retire, come out of the force when they are 35, 36, 37. So that is the age when they come out, and they have 15 or more years of productive life in the civil streets, as they call it.
Yeah.
So it's a great opportunity, but this is not a new idea.
Yeah.
What Flipkart and the Navy has done now is not a new idea. There is a separate department of ex-servicemen welfare in the Ministry of Defence which takes care of this, and there is also a department of ex-servicemen settlement. So these departments work on this area of providing opportunity beyond their service life, armed forces service life, thanks to all their services that they are performing, they are doing to this nation. So there are schemes. There are also entrepreneurial schemes that these departments that I talked about offer to these ex-servicemen who retire. So the private sector has benefited. See, we talked about academia, right? So IIT Madras has hired a former lieutenant general to take care of the incubation center that they have, in technology areas. So look at the kind of contribution that this general will be making because of his experience having served in the armed forces and having practical experience of using equipment, finding what is and jugad. There is a term in Hindi called as jugad. I don't know in Tamil what is the term, or in other languages what is the term that is used. But that jugad is a great thing that the Indian military has adopted at every stage when they face the problem in the operational areas. They have a problem with the rifle, they immediately do a jugad and ensure that it's firing. It continues to fire at the enemy. So these are all innovations. Please, people might call, it's a very ridiculing statement calling it as a jugad, which is a very colloquial term of saying that it's a raw, solution that you find. But actually, it's not. It's an innovation that these military minds have done. Yeah. So he's bringing that kind of expertise, that the mindset to find solutions to problems which are military. So that is what he's imbibing in the students who want to do some research work and do some startups from these incubation centers that they're doing. So that way, and also I know a lot of top former officers who are directors in companies, in defense companies in India today, including the Boeing Defense India's managing director is a former naval officer, admiral rank, rear admiral rank officer. So they've had a lot of value to these aerospace and defense companies in terms of their ideas, in terms of their experience, in terms of their knowledge, in terms of the skills that they bring to the table.
Right.
So it's a great partnership that they can have by hiring them.
Right. Bipin, I think we are running short of time. So I just want to ask one last quick question before we move to like a rapid fire phase. Okay. So it's just some general thoughts. This is largely in terms of when you're a student and you're entering university, right? And especially this is within the context of engineering education in India. what do you think of a culture that we have within the engineering education complex where there is a lot of preference for computer science? I'm not saying computer science is bad, I'm not saying electrical engineering is bad or anything, over something like, say, nuclear engineering. So what are your thoughts on computer science, which is very important, being overvalued, than a nuclear engineering, which is significantly undervalued, when we are talking about a world where everybody is just focusing on drones right now? I think nuclear is also a space where we need to focus. So, what are your thoughts on this hierarchy of sorts?
Vignesh, I agree with you on that completely. I think, I must admit that I was not able to convince my son to take up triple E as an option in his BTech. He went and chose computer engineering. So the young minds are working, towards that
Right.
sort of a thing these days. Uh, See, what has happened is the student, maybe Swami and me are from that era where I'm sorry, Vignesh, I don't know your age, so I don't want to really comment on it. And your appearance doesn't looks as though you just passed out of college. Our times, I believe people did choose varied technology subjects. Most of my student classmates, I'm a science student. I took science in school in 11th and 12th. So most of them chose different technological streams to study, and some of them left that completely and then studied economics at a later stage, or business management, and then went into business, managing businesses, and or becoming financial advisors in investment companies and stuff like that. So that said, what I think is that this kind of fascination for computer science is not a good thing at all. You need to invest. I think probably the government itself should. There is an intervention that is required from the government side of, telling Indians, these are the areas I need people. These are the areas where I need skills. These are the sectors where I need. There has to be some kind of study that is taken up, and then the requirements are put forth in a proper data format. And also limit the number of admissions that happen to the computer engineering or computer science, and then allocate students based on their merit to different categories. Suppose probably the nuclear engineering requires a much more hard work that is required. So probably biotech needs even more hard work that needs to be done by the students. So probably this sort of an effort is required. Probably the government is the best agency to do this. Sort of figuring out what is the requirement and allotting seats, accordingly. So that sort of an intervention is definitely required. I was hoping the new education policy would throw up that sort of a thing, but I didn't see anything of that sort there. But that's a thought that I have on the subject. So I completely agree with you on this. We need engineers in all engineering streams, not just in computer science.
Awesome. So, Bipin, thank you so much. That concludes the formal part of the interview. So, we'll now move to rapid fire questions. So, quick answers. I think we have 5 minutes to go. So, we want to get the most out of you within these next 5 minutes.
Sure, certainly.
So, my first question to you, Bipin, is what are some of the books that have influenced you the most in your life?
That's a tough question, actually. Steve Jobs' book. So
the Isaacson biography.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that is some that is.
Bipin, my question to you is, what does the word successful mean to you?
Successful is basically effort. That is what it means. You need to put in an effort. I agree with one of your previous participants that it's not just about success or failure. Even if you take some effort, and then that okay, this effort I put in, it didn't work out, it's fine. You learn some lessons there, and then you move on and do something else. So effort is always important, but that fortitude is required for you to make the judgment of when you need to stop the effort. So that's effort is what success is for me.
Right. So
this is my second venture, by the way.
Oh, wow.
After a failure of my first venture.
Right. So my next question is, if you could invite 4 guests for a dream dinner, who would they be and why?
Prime Minister Modi, Rahul Gandhi, then Vivek Lal. Vivek Lal is General Atomics' CEO, and probably I would invite Ratan Tata.
Okay, that is very interesting. What are 3-4 things that you would recommend to a young person entering university today?
Basically, they need to be smart in what they want to do. They need to have a fix on what they want to do. Most of the students, I don't know how many, both of you speak Tamil, I hope.
Yeah.
So in Tamil Nadu, if you ask a youngster, which has been an experience for me when I traveled there, ask them, what do you want to do? They say, jaliya irukkonunga. What do you want to do in the future? Jaliya irukkonunga. That's the answer that I get. I said, how stupid can the answer get? So
Right.
that was the thought that of course, I didn't tell that boy, but that was the thing that came to my mind. So is that your aspiration? So instead of saying that, okay, I want to do this, not I want to become this, I want to do this. So that my advice would be to do something in life, have an ambition and work towards it, be smart and look at, you should be like a coin dropped into a, still water. It takes the quickest possible way down to the bottom. So, that's what a student should look at. What is the quickest possible way for me to achieve something or do something in my life? So that's what they should look at and start working towards that.
Great.
My next question is, what's the best piece of advice, Bipin, anyone has ever given you?
The best piece of advice is, never to regret anything. So that was what my father told me. So so that is the best advice I ever got. So I have never regretted anything in my life, whether it evolved as I wanted it to be, or whether it failed or it never happened as I wanted it to be. I've never regretted anything. I'm a happy person because of that.
Great. So, Bipin, my final question to you is, who is someone whom you would like to see as a guest on ContraMinds in a future episode?
That's a great question that you asked me. I would suggest you should, probably call Dr. Ajay Kumar, who is the Defence Secretary of India.
Okay, great.
Thanks, Bipin. It was a fantastic conversation. We had a great time talking to you, and I do hope you had a good time talking to us. And thanks for sharing your, depth of experience on this whole rather not covered topic about different startups, defense tech, and how this operates. And thanks a lot. It was a privilege talking to you, and thanks for taking time and talking to us.
The sentiment is mutual, Swami and Vignesh. I really enjoyed this conversation. This is a conversation that not many people have with me. Despite the kind of, of course, within the sector people do, but not outside the sector. So I really enjoyed this conversation. Your questions were incisive. Probably, there is I saw in one of the naval training academies, there are no stupid questions. There are only stupid answers. Right. So I believe my answers were stupid, and thank you for this opportunity to be with you. And I enjoyed your show, and I hope your show grows and grows and grows, and a lot of people come and watch it, because you're doing fabulous work from what I've seen. And I'll be one of the regular listeners of your programs from now on. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Bipin. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much in general.
Thanks for listening to this episode. For selected links and detailed show notes, visit www.contraminds.com/blog. Follow ContraMinds on social media and let us know who you would like to see next on the podcast. If you're listening to ContraMinds on Apple Podcasts, do share your comments and give us a rating. We are keen to know what you're thinking. ContraMinds is also on YouTube. If you're listening to the podcast on YouTube, hit the subscribe button and stay up to date on all our releases. Thanks for listening and stay safe.